Hello everyone, welcome to Big Math Academy. Today we will learn about the characteristics of functions. The first characteristic is the domain and range of a function. The domain are all the x values, and on a graph you would read them from left to right. The range are all the y values, and on a graph you would read them from bottom to top. Also, if the graph ends in an open circle, you would write the domain and range in parentheses. And if it ends in a closed circle, you would write the domain and range in closed brackets. So in this graph, you would read the domain from left to right. So the domain over here, the x value over here is -3. -3, and then on the right, it would be 3. Now for the range, you would read it from bottom to top. So the most lowest point is -4. And also, because this is a closed circle, you would write a bracket instead of a parentheses. So it would be -4. And the most top point is 5. So -4, 5 is your range. Now for this graph, there isn't any closed point. It just keeps going. It keeps going to infinity. So for the domain, it would be -infinity to +infinity, because on the left side of the graph, the x values just keep going to -infinity, and on the right side they just keep going to +infinity. And for the range, it's the same thing. So the most lowest point, the y values just keep going down, so it would be -infinity, and the highest point is 5. So -infinity, 5. The next characteristic is end behavior. So basically, end behavior is when x approaches positive or negative infinity, what is y approaching? So you would write this as x approaches negative or positive infinity, f of x, or y, approaches what? So for this example, so we can see that the x value, it's approaching -infinity because it's going to the left. So we would say as x approaches -infinity, f of x approaches, and for the y value, it just keeps it's going up. So it's approaching +infinity. And now for this side of the graph, the domain, the x value is approaching +infinity, and the y values are approaching -infinity. And now for this graph, so the x values over here are approaching -infinity. So as x approaches -infinity, f of x approaches +infinity because it's going up. The graph is going up. And for this side, as x approaches +infinity, because the x values are going towards the right, f of x approaches also +infinity. And the next characteristic is absolute maximum and minimum. So absolute maximum and minimum are the highest and lowest points on the function. So on this example, there would only be an absolute minimum, because for the absolute maximum, you can't have an absolute maximum because both these lines, they just keep going to infinity, so you wouldn't have any absolute number. But the absolute minimum over here the y value, it would be negative 7. So absolute minimum would be negative 7 when x is equal to 3, is equal to negative 3. And for this graph, you wouldn't have any absolute minimum or maximum, because for absolute maximum, it just keeps going to infinity. So you wouldn't have an absolute number, and same for absolute minimum. It just keeps going down. So this wouldn't have anything, wouldn't have any absolute number. I hope this helps. Thank you for watching.